Okay, so now we're on to retopologizing and new terms for us: facial topology or edge flow, facial edge flow, facial topology, facial edge flow, interchangeable terms. So where are we on the current chart? So we've got our sketch sculpt, we've prepared it for retopologizing, and it's in Maya. So we're kind of like in the halfway point right here. So let's first look at what retopology actually is. This is a great example of a facial retopology, and it shows facial edge flow. Now, edge flow is almost like the roadmap of the face. When it comes to anything that's going to be animated, you need to have correct topology made for it. You can't just willy-nilly put anything anywhere, because the way that polygons stretch and warp and stuff, if you've got bad topology, you will warp your mesh, as well as warp your warp your texture, which is probably worse if you have like some really nice texture work with like nice normal maps and everything's looking beautiful, but the topology is bad. You can texture bad topology, you can UV bad topology, but you shouldn't. When it comes to animation, if he's talking and he's really expressive, you'll see like really bad skewing and smearing of the texture. It's going to look horrible, and then you get slated by reviews. So this is an example I often use. This image is an example I often use for when it comes to facial topology, because it's a great example. We're going to talk about how all this is laid out, but first of all, I want to talk about regions. I want to talk about the things that we're going to start off making first, because if we make these things first, everything else is really easy. And it breaks down into two camps. I've got my major camp and I've got my minor camp. My major camp are edge flows, which are the really important ones, and then my minor camp are edge flows, which are sometimes you might not even use them because your particular subject doesn't have them, or you just might not necessarily have them in your particular retopology because whatever. But the major camp breaks down into, there you go. Number one, your eye mask, and these are going to be all masks. Your eye mask, and your eye mask is, in this case, the screen one. Oh, that's a bad pen. Your eye mask, and what your eye mask is the loop of edges. I don't know why this is all. Let's do this. There you go. Your eye mask. Your eye mask is the loop, the ring of faces which goes around your eyes, and that allows us to blink properly. It allows us to express our eyes properly. Really easy, and it's literally just tracing the orbital socket, essentially. You can see, if we had a skull underneath this, you can see where the orbital socket is. It's basically tracing that. And then you've got what I call the bandit mask, which is this. And the bandit mask, you will see some people use it, you will see some people not use it. I think it's incredibly important. I don't understand why other people don't. It's what I call a container, because it contains the eye mask area. And it's kind of the shape of a bandit mask, like an old-fashioned, swag hag having kind of bandit. And what that does is it works with the eye mask to allow expression around the eyes and stuff. So if you've got someone who's particularly expressive, you're going to want to have this mask in there. Going down, we've then got the muzzle mask, which is this blue one, which, the name says it all, wraps around the muzzle. Now, it wraps around from basically the bridge of the nose, where you've actually got a bone there, the bridge of the nose, across, down the laugh lines. It's such a good, if you position it right, if you create it right, it's such a good mask to control the shape of the actual laugh lines. If you've got someone who's got really nice defined laugh lines, creases there, it's a brilliant one to define that, because then the inside line, this line right, you can't even see because it's red. I'll turn that to green. This line right here, right there, that internal edge is the one that would be creasing across that laugh line, and this edge is basically just going onto the cheek. That's the muzzle mask. Now this one, they've done it as one big group, but I call it the lip mask. And it's not actually got anything to do with the actual lips themselves, but it's the area around the lips. So like the philtrum going into the nose, going into underneath the lip there. But it's called the lip mask. So these 4 masks are the most important ones for me. If you get these in, everything else is much, much easier later on. It doesn't contain the actual lips themselves, so like all this area here would not be within that mask, because it would literally just be this area here, literally just like that. The way it flows, the way we're going to actually create these, the edge flow, if we do it right and we follow, we think about what we're doing, we follow kind of basic kind of thinking, everything else is actually really easy to set up. The cheek gets a little bit spicy sometimes if you're not careful, but other than that, the rest of the head is actually really simple to make. Once you've done this a few times, you'll really notice that retopology is quite a simple process. It's hard when you get thrown a curveball like a creature or something that has weird features. Now, one thing I really want to point out, really want to go over before we start talking about the minor masks, is the flow of a edge flow. What's actually happening? And it's all based around circles. Notice all these are all circles. They're all continuing loops. They don't just like go and stop somewhere. A loop should never just go and stop somewhere. A loop should be a continuous loop, like a track. So you can see it around the eyes. They go around the bandit mask. It goes around the muzzle mask. It goes around. But what I really want to point out is the flow. I mean, look at if we just follow these edges. I always think about it like a bit like a spider web going around the face. They're radiating outwards from a single point, and that's why I started off with the eye mask, because I think that's the point where we start. Well, that's the point where I always start my retopologies, and I move out from there in like this spider web. If I just clear this start, so remember all those. So yes, we've got the eye mask. They all kind of explode outwards into the bandit mask. Explode outwards across the nose, into the top of the head and stuff. When it comes to the mouth, it's all the same kind of jazz. And in fact, the lower part of the eye and the upper part of the mouth connect with each other. See what I mean? They all run into each other. And then from the mouth they run into the cheek, down into the chin, up into the nose, and then we have, obviously from the eyes, they come down, so you'll have them coming down. And you have some that traverse over each other, like that. So you start getting a net, a mesh appearing, So we'll have directions doing that. We'll do it in 2 different colours again. So you got some coming down from this, because maybe this is coming in from the cheek or the eye, and then you got this coming in from the mouth, and they'll kind of cross over, because you'll have polygons moving in that direction, and then you'll have polygons moving in that direction. Don't overthink it. Just trust the process. I'm only saying that because I've had people who say their topology doesn't work and the topology is wrong, and they've fallen back and then refuse to do topology because something in the brain is telling them that it's not right. But when I've looked at it, I'm like, no, that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with this topology, because they're thinking that edge flows can overlap each other, but they can. Yes, I've been referring to this as an edge flow. It is an edge flow, but edge flow generally is the flow of edges, how stuff runs across the head. That's an edge flow. Everything has a direction, and depending on your subject, your edge flows might be different. So yeah, edge flow. So this image is, I think, incredibly important just because it highlights them 4 major ones. Now, the other ones I can't really show on this, and I've not really got a great example to show it, but when we actually retopologize, I will show you. I like doing what I call a nose mask, and a nose mask is literally just a loop of faces that run around her nose in a circle there, and that helps me really define the corner of the nose, the underneath the philtrum. It kind of helps me control that area. Another one will be a loop around the ear, and I think this actually does have it on. Looking at the side here, I think it does have it on, but I do like a little loop around the ear that is basically almost like a container for the ear. So if I wanted to, I could just select all those faces around the ear and then take the ear off, rather than having faces which, like, because I've built it, I might have faces come around and all of a sudden they go up and over in this kind of direction. I'm making these loops. Another one is what I call the mask. And the only reason why I'd use the mask is when I'm really trying to define someone's cheek or like the jawline. And it's literally something that would come through from top of the head, and it'd come down, and it'd trace the jawline. Like that. I might do it on Sasha when I'm doing the retopology, just to show you. In fact, I'll probably do all these just to show you them. But this one, if you look carefully, the topology is going down into the neck, and that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. As long as the shape doesn't have any like weird spikes on it or anything like that, we're all good. Now, why this is all very important and why we go to so much pain and stress over making sure that this retopology is good is the way that things move. So if you think of the ear, sorry, not the ear, the eye, just think about how that moves. You know, when you're blinking, there you go. When you're blinking, everything moves down or up in that direction. They'll move together. Even here, they're moving up and down. So they're coming together. What they're not doing is moving like in that direction, across each other. Polygons want to basically compress and expand in one direction. They don't want to be doing any of this kind of stuff. Same thing for the lips here. When you speak, you're going to be compressing. Bad color. You're going to be compressing the lip downwards and the lip upwards, and in this case outwards in that direction. And then when you bring the mouth closer together, like in, or when you bring your mouth in, maybe someone's pursing the lips or something, you'll bring it down in together. There's something in phonics, which is how how sounds are made, called plosives, and a plosive is something like B, P. I think me might be a plosive, but especially where you curl your lips in to make a sound like a sound. That's a plosive. So if you're animating something, or if you're doing a character which you want to sculpt them like they're mid, or maybe they're puff their cheeks out or something, you want to make sure that their topology is coming in the right direction. Of course, yes, there's going to be points where polygons do kind of skew against each other and rub, but they're going to be in areas which aren't necessarily that important, and where the rub, the skew, isn't going to be very prominent. The most important places are here, because that's where everyone looks when they're dealing with characters. That's where you're going to look. So if everything is okay here, the major masks, then everything else is pretty cool. And you've just got to go through the process. Watch how I do things, and I'm going to explain why I'm doing things as I'm doing it. Watch how I do things and really try and take in why I'm doing it. One thing I'm definitely not going to do is try and get detailed retopology in straight away. I'm going to do the exact same thing I've always done. I'm going to go really low poly first, and then I'm going to build it up. Because if I try and go really high poly and really detailed straight away, I'm going to get myself into a situation where I've got problems all over the place. So let's actually do some retopology. Okay, so let's jump into the Maya. So here's Sasha. I'm going to close this. There you go. I'm going to open my channel box, and in fact, I also want to open my modeling toolkit, which is this little hammer and cube there, because what we're going to use is actually inside there. So we've got our head here, and we're all ready to actually start retopologizing. Now, I can't just retopologize on this. I've actually got to set this mesh up slightly, very, very, very quickly. All I've got to do is basically select the mesh, and up at the top here, in our toolkit here, I'm going to find this. Mine's in like a green box. I've still got like show new tools on for some reason. But this is just a single like U-shaped magnet on its own. I'm going to click that, and then it's going to bring up a blue message inside here. It's going to say a bunch of letters. What it's saying is, and you can see this is actually turned green as well in the outliner. It's saying that this is now a live object. So Sasha FBX SC032 head 1 is now a live object. And what a live object is, look how I can't interact with it. A live object now becomes a bit of a magnet, because this is what we need. We need something to basically append to stick this new topology on. And that's what we've done. So I now can't interact with this mesh whatsoever. The only way I can interact with it is in my outliner, clicking on the actual name. That's the only way I can interact with it. But I can't do anything with it. So if we probably had it a couple of times last year when people accidentally pressed that. So now our mesh is actually ready for retopology. Let's just look at the retopology tools first. So I've opened up my modeling toolkit here, and I'm going to come down to the very bottom right where it says Quad Draw. Now Quad Draw has a few little functions here, and I would recommend just reading through these. There's not a lot of them, but there's some hotkeys and stuff, and some settings and stuff. I'm going to leave them all as standard for now. I'm going to show you what Quad Draw does. So I'll make my screen a bit bigger for now. So what Quad Draw does is allows me to plot down a vertex. I've literally just clicked on the surface there, and I've plotted a vertex down. And it's attached to the skin, so if I move around, you can see it's actually on the surface, which is cool. And I'm going to click again. I plot down 2 vertexes, which is awesome. Now I'm going to put down another 2 to make a square. So what I've got here is a quad before it's a quad. I've set up 4 vertexes to make a quad. If I hold shift, you're going to see this little green square appears. This is basically saying, do you want to place a quad here? Which I do. So I'm going to hold, while I'm holding shift, I'm just going to click inside this little square. And then we've got a blue square. Now this is actually topology. I've actually made a piece of geometry. And it's on the surface. Which is really good. Now it's not going to perfectly wrap to the surface, because remember, polygons, the edges can't bend. The edges are a straight line between 2 vertexes. So it might look like it's merging through a little bit, but that's all good. And this blue color is just showing us that it's there. I'll do this for now, just so the screen gets a bit nice, easy to see. So that's a quad. Now what I can do is also add another 2 to the right of it. Hold shift. Do it again. And add another 2. Hold shift. Add again. Add another 2. Hold shift. Add again. So you can see I'm very easily able to, and just add 1. See, if I'm in a corner here, I can add 1. And it goes boom. So what it does, it looks for the nearest either other vertex points or other edges to create a piece of geometry from. And I can click, and I can even move edges. If I hover around an edge, I can click and move that edge. If I hover over the face, and this isn't me holding anything, so my left hand's here. If I hover over an edge, I can just move it. If I hover over a face, I can move it. If I hover over a vertex, I can move it. If I hold shift and then click and scrub, I can smooth. Not super great inside this. I might do it a little bit later on. Oh well, I will be doing it a little bit later on, but just like in ZBrush, if you over smooth something, you lose all the features. The exact same thing happens in here, because it's not clever enough to know where it should and shouldn't go. So as you can see there, making geometry is really simple. I'm literally just clicking down points to make geometry. And if I'm clever enough, I can plot down an amount of vertexes that I know I'm going to use this. I can go hold down shift, click and then drag to quickly make some. Very, very cool. So click, click, click. You can make triangles. Not that we should, but we can make tries when he wants to, because a quad's in the scene, he wants to make a quad. To delete stuff, control and shift. And you'll see when I'm holding control and shift, you get a little arrow with an X, basically saying, do you want to delete this? Yes, I want to delete this. And you can even do that on faces. You can delete faces. And even delete, if you do it on edges, you'll delete like a band of edges, band of faces. Very cool. But you can't do, if there's only one, you can't do the final one. You've got to delete that by going into normal modeling mode and deleting it. So let me open Modeling Toolkit again. Okay, boom. So that's basically making stuff. So literally clicking down, making a square, holding shift, clicking in the middle of it, you've got a new polygon. And it's going to attach itself to the surface because my head is a live surface, and this is what it does. So let's get rid of them. Again, control and shift just to delete. So other things we can do is if I hold tab. Now tab, remember, is just a key up from caps lock on the keyboard. I can extrude faces. That's me holding tab when I do this, which is very cool. Now what's very cool about this is if I drag out something, drag out this, and if I bring an edge close to another one, it's going to eventually snap. So now I've made these two one edge. So I'll do that again. So from here, I'm going to drag this up, and then I'm going to move that top right corner close to that one, and it's going to snap like that. Now that's something you can change inside here. The auto weld function is turned on, that's why it's doing it. And then this 10 is basically the distance threshold. So if you increase that, it's going to make it snap quicker. But I'm going to leave that alone for now. I'm going to leave it default settings. And you can click and drag those in. You know, if something doesn't weld for whatever reason, you can just click and drag them in. Easy. And that's just holding tab. And you see, as I'm making it, it's still attaching to the surface. So, oops, it is. Oh yeah, if you hold tab and just drag on a surface, you'll make like a strip. Don't do that. It's, see what I mean? Oh my god. Yeah, don't do that. It's a pain in the ass. That's just me holding control and shift and click and drag it on the surface. There we go. So really cool. That's the basics of quad drawing, and that's all you need to know about quad drawing for now. That's as simple as it is. So what we're going to do now is actually retopologize. Now my process for this, again, is working from the eyes outwards. So I'll go eyes, bandit mask, muzzle mask, lip mask. So I'm going out and then in. And then I might do the ear mask. Maybe I might do a mask. Maybe I might do a neck mask, like a loop around the neck. When we come to do the body, I'll also set up like a wrist mask, an elbow mask, a shoulder mask. At the bottom of the fingers, I'll set up loops for those. When I say mask as well, I don't mean a mask as in like ZBrush as in, you know, you're masking something off. I'm literally just meaning a loop. So I'll set up a loop around the base of the finger. Everywhere where I know I'm going to need a loop, I'm going to set up loops ahead of time. So then when I come to actually connect everything, it's really easy because everything's already set up. One of the things I do as well is I tend to stick everything around the same numbers. 4, 8, 16, 12, 14, these kind of numbers. Well, yeah, 4, 8, 12, 14, 16. These numbers, because they're all within the same kind of numerical area. Well, definitely 4 and 8 and 16, they're all multiples of each other. And 6 and 12 as well. They're all either close to each other numerically or multiples of each other. If you do that, if you do the same thing that I do, everything will join up really, really easily, very, very easily. And what I also do, and I'll go over this constantly as I'm doing this, is I split some stuff like the eye, for instance. I'll split up into a top and a bottom half. So I'll put a point in the middle of like the tear duct and a point in the middle of the outside of the eye, and that's going to be my halfway line. And if I've got 6 edges on my eyelid at the top, I'm going to have 6 edges on my eyelid at the bottom. So I'm keeping my numbers, which makes 12. So I'm keeping my numbers consistent. And if you do that, trust me, it's going to be a lot easier. If you just add in random amounts of numbers, you're going to have a bad time. I've always said, in 2D, you've got millions of rules you've got to follow, but they're all very malleable. You can bend and stretch them and change them however you want. In 3D, you've got very few rules, but they're all very strict, and if you mess with them... Sorry, my headphone's a bit goofy. If you mess with them, then you're going to have a really bad time, and you're just going to struggle. You've got to respect it. You know, you've got to respect 3D. Cool. Bring my screen back. So, before I go to retopologize, there's one last thing I'm going to do. Is I'm going to turn on Symmetry Object X. Now this actually might present a problem. If your model is asymmetrical, this won't retopologize correctly. You'll be able to see that, you know, if you're on one side retopologizing over here, and then you step back and, you know, half of it's disappeared on the opposite side, probably means your head's not symmetrical. which means you're going to have to go back into ZBrush, make sure it's symmetrical, then go through the process of bringing it back in. But let's do some retopology. So I'm going to start off with the eye. And like I said, I'm going to start off with tear duct and the outside of the eye. That's my halfway point. Then I'm going to put one at the top of the middle of the eyelid, one at the bottom of the middle, in the middle of the bottom eyelid, like that. And then I'm going to put one in the middle of that. Really good. And then I'm going to basically mirror that, but slightly outside. So I'm going to think about where my eye... So I'm not going to go in small movements as well. I'm going to go big movements. I'm going to think about where the... so I've made my eyelids, and I'm going to think about where my eye socket is. So I'm going to go... Again, maybe my eye socket's about here for my eye. And then for the outside of the eye, it's going to be about here. For the top of the eye, it's going to be somewhere around here. So that's my middle. And then my bottom is going to be somewhere around here. And then I can go, well, that's my middle one. It's going to be about here. It's going to be about here, and about here. So you can see I'm kind of trying to definitely keep equidistant spaces between all these dots. And what I've got here is a loop in the making. And I've just made sure that I'm keeping my numbers really consistent. So I'm middle, middle, middle. So that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4 at the top and 4 at the bottom. For now, I'm going to add stuff in later on. And it will come in really, really kind of weird at first. It's not going to grab the information that we want, but then you'll see. You'll see. So all I'm going to do now is hold shift. I'm going to start click and then slowly, carefully drag around the eye. And then you can see that's why I'm being slowly, because sometimes it can kind of grab the wrong thing. Like that. There we go. And we've made our first loop. That's our first edge loop. Done. And like I said, it's going to look a little bit goofy at first because we're being very, very low poly with stuff. And I've got my eye here. There's 4 at the top, 4 at the bottom. There's 8 going round. The only thing I'm going to do differently with my eye is I'm going to add 2 more edges, top and the bottom. So one here, one here. So on the outside of the upper eyelid and the outside of the lower eyelid. And on the inside here, near the tear duct, one there and one there. That's because around that part of the eye, that's when the top and the lower eyelid, they're kind of consistent curves. But when the 2 points meet, you get what you call a quick curve, where it basically quickly moves. And that just gives me a little bit more geometry to help that area kind of work a bit better. It has broken my equidistant kind of work. So yeah, we are a bit tighter in the corner here. We are a bit tighter in the corner here. That's fine, because I'm going to end up adding in edges in later on. Now, how did I actually add those edges in? Let's go back and do it again. How did I quickly add an edge in there? I just hold control. That's all I'm doing. If I hold control. And then I can add in. So, boom, 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 boom. And you can see there, I can actually add one in as an entire loop. This is why loops are so important. I can add one in the entire loop, like that. But I'm not going to for now. So I've added those in, and all I'm going to do now is clean up the mesh. So I'm going to try and follow the geometry a bit nicer on the inside of the eye. So I'm going to try and make it as smooth as possible, working with the the kind of density of mesh that I'm working with. So we're coming in, top of the eye, like that. That's cool. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the outside. So I'm going to just drag that, make it more of a loop. Now I can move these to be a bit more equidistant on the outside. I'm just not going to touch these inside edges. Now, really, it's a bit of a hippie thing. I really want you to think about the word flow. It's a very soft word. It's flow. There's no harsh sound in it. Flow. And that's what we want. We want everything to be flowing, nice and smooth. We don't want any harsh edges anywhere. So there, we've made some eye masks. And for now, we're going to leave those there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bridge between the noses. I'm going to bridge between the nose and then create the bandit mask. Because if I try and create the bandit mask now, it's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass. And there's a function I can use that kind of makes the bandit mask really quick to make. So all I'm going to do is hold tab. I'm going to drag out where the tear duct center line is here. I'm going to drag out the top one and the bottom one. So I'm going to drag this one out to about there. So not the middle of the nose, but to where the nose, because she's got a bit of a flat nose here, where the nose kind of flattens off there. I'm going to do the same thing. Drag this one out, do that. And then I'm going to kind of arrange these so they're coming up over the nose. Like that. I'm not just dragging them out in a straight line like that. I want it to go up over the nose. I don't want it to be like a masquerade mask where it's like coming out and over, like in a straight line. I want it to come up and over like that. So I'm going to move them. So again, that flow is going to go up and then down. Cool. Now we'll see if it works like it should do, because oftentimes this doesn't work for some reason. So I'm going to drag from there now. I'm going to bring it to the center. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to bring it to the center until they snap. Like that, and just make sure that... So I'm just dragging the middle there. They're not wanting to snap together for some reason. But oh, are you snap together now? There you go. So there, it just took me a couple of tries just to get those to snap together in the middle. But what I've got here is the middle of the nose ridge. And I can move those. So I've moved that center line there, just so it's at like the point where the glabella ends and the nose begins. Right there. Dead nice. And what that has also started to lay out is the plane of the side of the nose, which would be these two faces, and the plane of the top of the nose, which is these two faces. Awesome. Now I'm going to make that bandit mask, and this is actually really quick to make. All I've got to do is change one function in this quad draw menu. Because currently, my extrusion is just one face coming out. And it's why I made the bridge the nose first. So if I come over to my quad draw menu here, I'm going to go to extend. That's essentially extrude. I'm going to go to extend. And I've got loop and border. Currently, we've only got edge, and that's just that single extrusion. I've got loop and border, and I'm going to show you what the two do and why you might need to switch between them. So if I hold tab, you now see all the way round is getting selected. So if I click and drag now, that's not necessarily doing what I want it to do. So loop is, it's selecting the loop going all the way around. But in this setting, it will drag it in the same direction. Everyone goes in the same direction, which is not what we want. What I want, what I want is everything to come outwards, expand outwards. So I'm going to change that to border. Hold tab, and then when I click and drag, you'll see, whoa, it comes out like that. Awesome. My bandit mask is now made. All we've got to do is just do a bit of cleaning up. So remembering back to what we were talking about things growing out from the face, I'm thinking about that. You know, where those normal directions are facing, that's where they're going to want to go. So all the faces at the top of the eye, you know, the ones on the inside, like right in the middle of the eye, are going to want to go up. The ones on the outside are going to want to go in, like, to the side of the head. So I'm just making sure that my path, my road is looking good. Again, this is still going to be really low res, so I can't chase everything looking really smooth for now. But trust the process, like I keep saying. So all I'm doing is just arranging stuff. And there's going to be areas where this will get tighter, the geometry will get tighter. We actually kind of want that in some areas. Now we will be able to see, and I've had this question all the time, Dave, my mesh is broken because you can see the grey here. That grey is the high poly mesh. Now that high poly mesh has far more faces to it. It can be a lot smoother. This is a very low poly mesh. Currently, it's going to connect to where it can connect. So just don't worry about that for now. Cool. So that's our bandit mask. Done. So we've done our eye mask and we've done our bandit mask. Dead simple. And I'll make an eye at the back of the head. So all we've done is we put a point in for the tear duct, a point in for the corner of the eye, a point in for the middle of the top eyelid, a point for the middle of the low eyelid, and then middle points in between that one to make a basic eye shape. And then we basically mimic that exact shape but further outwards. So middle, 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 middle. Boop, 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 boom, 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 boom. Oh, boom, there you go. Aye. And then we just extruded those edges in to the middle of the nose. So we brought one up to the very side of the nose there. We can actually look at this one. To the side of the nose there. So we brought it to there. And then we brought another face coming over into the middle of the nose. So like that, which connects everything. Simple. And that's, honestly, that's it. That's the kind of thought path. Retopology is a very simple process. It's just it's like doing a jigsaw. You're a toddler, so you've done those 6-piece jigsaws, and then someone's giving you a 500-piece jigsaw. You know what you got to do. You know what it's meant to look like, but it's like, how do I even approach this? Once you get it, you get it. So now I'm going to do the muzzle mask. So again, we're going from the from the eyes out to the muzzle mask, to the out to the bandit mask, to the muzzle mask, and then into the lip mask. So muzzle mask, exact same thing. So I'm going to find and we're going to the cheeks here. So I'm going to make in this way. I'm going from the outside, and then I'm going to go in. So I'm going to find the middle point of the cheeks. So I'm going to find about there, and you'll always end up adjusting this. And then when I put a point down, it's not going to be clever enough to know that if, like in ZBrush, it kind of knows when you're in the middle and it'll merge the brush, or in like Z-Spheres, it'll merge the Z-Spheres into one. This isn't clever enough to do that. So what I got to do in the middle of the head here, in this point, is just add 2. Well, add 1. It's going to add 2. Like that. We'll fix that up later on. So that's the middle of the nose, and now go down to the chin. Boom, chin. And then I do a middle. And then I do a middle. Dead easy. Now I'm going to, with the eyes, I started from the inside of the eyelids and went outwards. This one I'm going to go from the outside of the cheek inwards. So now I'm going to do the same process, but going inwards. So middle, middle. Middle. And then middle, middle. And then I can start to fill these in. Oh, now this one's going to be a bit of a pain. This happens with Retopology in any software. Because it's searching for a face, it's not necessarily going to be clever enough to search for the right one. So you know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to delete these 2 points, and I'm just going to change my extrusion back to edge. I'm just going to drag this up to where I want it to go. So this one's going to go into the middle of the nose there. That's all I've got to do. You know, sometimes the solution is simpler than you think. So yeah, because it wasn't grabbing the points that I already set up ahead of time, I had to kind of add them in myself. I had to extrude out. So drag this one and make those meet in the middle. Boom, there we go. All good. I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. Okay. Awesome. Now I'm going to do the same thing as I did with my my eyes, and I'm going to add a few extra edges, not a ton, just a few extra edges, just to, one, help the form fit the structure that we've got at the minute, but also set up connecting paths, and you'll very quickly be able to see one. I'm going to go from the nose round to do this. So I'm going to add, holding control, I'm going to add a connecting path, or a new edge, boom. I'm going to drag it up so I can make that difference between like the ridge of the nose here, the flat of the nose there, going into the side of the nose here. Now already we've got a connecting path there, so we've got boom, 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 boom. We've already set up a path. And then I'm going to put one right here, which is now already setting a path here. You see what I mean? And all I'm doing there is just making the side of the nose, top of the nose, side of the nose, top of the nose. But because I've got a good sculpture already, it's already, you know, I'm building on top of a good sculpture. The form is already starting to come through. I'm starting to get a nice graphical form, so I can see kind of the bulge at the side of the nose there using topology. It's really awesome. And then I'm going to add another one across here in the middle. Basically, I'm going to half everything again. Half, 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 and half. Now, because I started off with the same amount of edges going around, the muzzle, I'm starting off with the same amount of edges I went around with my eye. all my numerical values are still quite close to each other. Even though I might be adding like 1 or 2 extra edges, we're not like I've got 30 edges going around my eyes and 2 edges going around my mouth. We're still quite close. So things are going to still start to line up really easily. Now I've gone through and put the halfway points in there. I'm just going to, again, make sure that these look like they're following that. Everything's spiderwebbing outwards. Dealing with the low poly, it's going to be what it is. It is what it is. There we go. Now I can't lose my halfway point. I can't lose that that's my halfway point. That's going to be really important when I make my lip mask. That's my halfway point. Very important. So I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 at the top because I added that extra one for the nose, and then 4 at the bottom. But as I was saying before, you know, we're already setting up connecting points between like the nose there. Cool. And I'm going to just do the thing I always do and just faff around with it a little bit. Okay, cool. Again, make it as equidistant as I can for now. Okay, like that. That's fine. I'm going to make my lip mask now. Same jazz. Middle, 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 middle. So it's corners of my mouth, right there. So actually, looking at this, maybe I should have done a high resolution decimation or high percentage decimation, because maybe I might have lost a little bit of that information there, which I'm actually going to do. So this is actually nothing I planned, but I think this might be a good little learning example for like if you do find like, you know what, that's not quite right. I need to go back. That's all good. You don't have to scrap anything you've done here. So all I'm going to do is unlive the object. So I'm going to leave my topology there. I'm going to unlive the head, and I'm just going to delete it. Get rid of it. So here's a good example to see how the head's coming along. That's a face appearing. And I'm going to jump back into ZBrush. I'm going to get my decimated head. So we got that. We're at 15,000. Oh. So now I'm going to bring that forward. See, this is what you be careful of. I'm going to... There we go. Yeah, cool. I'm going to reduplicate this head. I'm going to decimate this head at... See what 20k gives me. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to do it as... So that gives me about 40,000 faces inside Maya. That's fine. So all I'm going to do is re-export this. So what happened then when I first came in is I decimated and then scaled up my head. So when I controlled Z back, it downscaled it. That's why just be careful what you do. Be mindful what you do. But it's always good just to duplicate. So all I've done is just been, oh no, made it. So I've rescaled it again. I'll move my history bar so I'd rescaled it again. And then just duplicate a new version of my main head. I can get rid of that original. So the difference is, the difference is going to be 5k, but I think that 5k is going to make quite a bit of difference. So I can delete that 15k head. I'm going to export my 20k head. Off top of that, youth. And all I'm going to do is re-import it into here, and there shouldn't be any issues. Maya. Boom. Awesome. I'm just going to reapply that material I made before, so that's Lambert 2. There we go. And all I'm going to do is now select this new mesh, make it live, and then select the geometry I was just using and go back to Quad Draw. Boom. So we've made a mistake, we've made a decision, we've gone back, we're back on it. Nothing's changed. And that feels a bit nicer to work on now. So yeah, corner of the mouth. Put 2 dots at the top there, just so that's my middle of my mouth. Point, point. Like that. So I've got middle, 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 middle. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Boop, 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 boop. I need to get, there we go, starting off point. So bring you into the middle. Starting off point. So bring you, there we go. Awesome. And then bring you into the middle. Brilliant. And then I'm just going to make that a bit bigger. Because my lip mask, notice my lip mask doesn't actually contain my lips. It goes around the lips. Technically it goes around the muzzle, but I'm not going to call 2 muzzle masks, am I? I'm just going to make that a bit bigger. I'm not going to connect these, but what I'm going to point out is those line up, because that's the middle of my mouth. Then I've got the halfway point that lines up, and then I've got the middle that lines up. Like here and here line up. And then it's just one in between them. Same for here, look at that. Those two can line up, that one and that one can line up. It's just the middle and the middle. So what I can do is then add those middle points. Middle, middle, middle. And then just adjust the mesh, adjust the topology to, you know, trace that mesh again. And I'm going to just keep everything nice and equal. I'm going to add some in the filtrum area as well. Bang. So now we're dealing with nice, equal, clean meshes. And I'm not connecting these yet, but you can see where things can run on with it. Like this can run into this. This can run into this. But just for now, I'll leave them separate. So those are all our main mesh, our main loops done. We got the eye mask done, the bandit mask, the muzzle mask, the lip mask. Everything is based off that. You do your halfway points, then your halfway points, and then halfway in between those ones. And then you either, like for the eyes, I started off the inside of the eye, and then I went outwards. For my muzzle, I started off on the outside of the muzzle and went inwards. For my lips, I started off from the inside of my lips and went outwards. You know, hopefully you understand that. And we've got a lot of information in there. A lot of information. So if I just grab this and isolate, you'll see that, you know, that's a face. It's totally a face. So those are my 4 main masks. There's still a lot of work to do, and there's still a lot of adjustments to do. But my main masks are in there. Now I'm going to do some minor masks. I'm going to put some ear mask in there, and I'm going to put an ear mask in there. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to think if I'm going to put a nose mask in there. Ear mask, like I said, is dead simple. I'm just going to go from the top. So I'm going to go from the inside outwards again. So top of the ear, bottom of the ear, middle of the ear, middle of the ear, corner, 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 and then doop, 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 bang, 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 bang. Oh, there we go. There you go. Right, cool. So, boom, I've already set up my ear mask. And it's using the exact same numbers that I've been using for the other ones. And then if I double the number, it's going to be just like my lip mask, my eye mask. If I add a couple more, the numbers, so if I add like 2 at the bottom, 2 at the top, because again, that quick corner thing where it curves faster at the top, but it's quite smooth. It's even, you know, if I do that kind of stuff, I'm still not going to be too numerically far away from, you know, 4, 8, 6, 12, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to add nothing for now, in fact. I'm just going to leave it as it is. I'll make decisions later on. Awesome. So I'm going to do a save now. So saved, and this is where I start to connect stuff. And it's also where I start to build the cranium. So I've built the eye mask, the bandit mask, muzzle mask, lip mask, and I built an ear mask. And I can go in a couple of different directions now. What I tend to do is build the top of the cranium and the forehead area as like a cap using my eye mask. And you'll see, I call it the ski mask because you basically make a band that goes around from your eyes to the back of your head. It's not one of my major masks or anything like that. But, okay, let's do that. So I'm going to make the top of my head, top of my cranium. So what I'm going to do is use my eyes as a starting off point, and I'm going to find the middle of my outside of my eye there. Find the middle point. And I'm going to grab the upper edge, so this one, on the upper eyelid, this one. I'm basically going to drag that all the way past there to what would be, if we think of the head as like a box, this is one side, this is the back side. I'm going to drag it up to that corner. Delete that. And then I'm going to extrude from there to the back of the head. Come on. Right. So up, and then up. There you go. So now that's made a loop. It's a rough loop at the minute, but that's made a loop. That's going from What are you doing? There we go. That's now going round the head. You can see going round the head from one eye around the head into the other. And this is almost kind of like a container, because this is going to everything up here is going to be the forehead. This is also setting up some. We're going to talk about redirecting topology, so that you're not because you got a load of faces in your eyes and your face kind of area here, and if you just send all of those backwards, you're going to have loads of faces in your neck. When really we need to be economical with our topology. We need to basically redirect it round. But we'll do that anyway. So I'm going to add an edge in the middle. It doesn't matter where I add it in as well. I don't need it to be in the middle, but I'm going to add an edge in the middle by adding an edge in on the side of the head, and then just moving it to the middle, aligning it with the top of the ear. Again, we're thinking about those alignment points. And I'll not connect those together just yet. I might end up doing, but I'll just leave it like that for now. Now here comes one of Dave's weird ways of working. I could go through and I could plop down points and start to fill in the top of the head and all that kind of lovely stuff. But what I tend to do is work from the middle. When I'm doing this part anyway, I work from the middle of the nose, and I go up and around as like a strip to create almost like a bit of a strap going up the top of the head, round to the back of the neck, and then I fill in. I go from the side of the head upwards into it. Hopefully this will start to make a bit of sense when you see it done anyway. So I'm going to go from middle of the head here. I'm going to go top of the forehead. So where it's forehead into cranium, I'm going to go back there. And then I'm going to go to the back of the head. So when it goes from like the cranium back into the occipital. And so you can see how, because there's no geometry there, it struggles to actually make anything. And then I'm going to drag down from here to here for now. What I'm doing there is I'm setting up an edge loop. I'm setting up a path ahead of time. So I'm just going to add an edge in the middle. And that's what I love about retopology. The quadrant, it'll snap to the surface. It's beautiful. So you can see that I'm actually setting up a bit of a shape. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my god, I've got 4 faces. So again, I'm using that same kind of numerical breakdown. I've got 4 faces. So at the back of the head, I'm just going to add an edge in here to then be able to connect these up. That's all good. And then I'm just going to put 1 in the middle of each one of these for now. There we go. Dead nice. Now here's where it gets a little bit weird. I'm going to now start to, every other edge, I'm going to start to drag these back. So here's where the weird thing, and again, I've been doing this for years, and it's always a little bit of a struggle to explain some of my weird workings. But when people see it, they understand it. I'm not going to build from the side of the head up like that. I'm going to build from the front of the head backwards. That then sets up the geometry to come over the side of the head. So, and just to speed up time as well, I'm not going to go the and then bleh and then bleh. I'm going to miss this one, and then I'm going to go this one. So I'm going to make this one. So I'm going to bring this to the middle. Make sure that line is obviously in line with that. So they look like they're going to line up. And I'm just going to bring this back here for now. And then I'm going to skip one, do the same thing. So I'm going to skip this edge. I'm going to drag it up to the head here. Make sure that's in line again. So I'm keeping up that center line. And then I'm going to drag this one to the back like that. Or should I say, actually, no, these should be back here. Sorry. So this line here is going to go bump to bump to bump and then up to this line. So this line here is going to join to this one. Like that. And then I'm going to add an edge in each one of them like that, that, and that. And then this one needs halfway, 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 and then halfway, halfway, halfway on these. So you see it starts to look a little bit funky, but trust me, it's fine. It's all good. You'll see the magic happen in a second. So why have I done that? Why have I skipped every one of them? That's only because of time, just being a bit faster. If I do this on every one of these, it adds like an extra 5 minutes onto my job, which isn't a bad thing. If you want to do that, go for it. All I'm doing here is thinking ahead. Because if I do that, what I can do now is if I hold shift, I can fill in between them. So fill, so I can go from here, fill, and then click and drag backwards. So I filled in that area. Filled in that area. Filled in that area. And you see how super quick that was? Incredibly quick. And then I'm just going to go through and just hold shift and just click and gently smooth some of this out. Just to even it out a little bit. I can already kind of add, you know, these might connect to there, this might connect to there for now. So I can already, again, kind of pre-set up these paths. This is the point which is a little bit tricky, because I've got to now fill in this hole. And this is where redirection is important, because I've got all these faces coming back. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 12 edges, 6 either side. I've got 12 edges coming to the back of my neck. I don't need that much going in there. So what I'm going to do is redirect some into the back of the head here. So they're basically doing what this does. They're basically going to go round the back of the head and into itself. So I'm going to do that with these two. Oops, with these two. And that means that I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 edges going into the back of my neck. And I can always come back later on and fix that up, but okay, so I'm just going to move that up again. I'm going to add that. So just by moving that up and adding another edge, I've turned that one edge into 2 edges, ready for 2 edges. So I can drag that across, drag that across, start to fill it in. And then we've got this up here. We've got 3 edges coming into 1 edge. So this is where you've got to think a little bit. Oh, actually, that shows me that something's not. There we go. So yeah, if you try and add an edge in there and it's not going all the way like that, it's probably meaning that one of your edges hasn't welded. So just make sure it's welded like that. Right, boom. So I don't know any kind of mathematical equation to explain to you about this. You've got to know you've got to know about the edge you're going into and the edges you're coming from. So I've got 3 edges here, and I've got 1 edge here. And it doesn't mean I'm going to add 3 edges in down here to meet these. No. What I'm going to do is first of all add 1 edge in. There you go. And then see how that fixes everything. So I can that's definitely a quad. And that's a quad. Awesome. So if I'm adding in single edges at a time, I'm not adding like, oh, I'll just fill a load of edges in and try and like whatever. I'm gradually adding in these edges, especially in places like this, because this is where I want to keep my poly count down. And then what's happening here is I've got, oh, actually, I've done it for 4 edges instead of 3. So I've got 4 edges that are going around the head. So all these are all going around the head. And then these ones are going down. Okay. Now one thing as well is I might come back and rechange this topology completely later on. Or not completely change it, but I might adjust stuff later on. Just because you're laying in this topology doesn't mean that this is the final stuff. You know, you might come back and think, I could do that a bit better. I'm going to delete some faces, redirect it. But it's all about making that good solid foundation. As long as you're not messing around with your masks, your bandit mask, eye mask, lip mask stuff, you're all good. So I'm just going to use a smooth to just smooth it out a little bit. Now when I'm smoothing as well, I'm making sure that anything I'm deeming as a center line isn't moving too far forward or too far back. So I'm making sure that this is still in a good position. Pretty good. Still a lot of work to do, but pretty good. As I add more information into the face as well, I will create a couple of like redirecting loops. Like one I often make is inside the head, inside the forehead. I make like a little N shape that basically takes it up, across, and down just within this one area. I don't need to do that at this point. What I will do is just rearrange some of these a little bit, because what's happening here is everything is from the front. It's looking okay. Oh, you can see that it's like we're getting too many sharp angles. I'm losing that flow. And this is just what you do, you know. As you add more edges in there, you'll see, with everything so far, as you add more, you'll see things you need to adjust. The underneath is perfectly fine. Up here in the forehead just needs a bit of adjustment. But for now, that's fine. I also want to avoid smoothing around here because look what's happening. It's destroying it, so I want to avoid doing that. Okay. People might call these engons, by the way. This shape, people might call that an engon. I've had heated arguments, heated words with students about this. This isn't an engon. It's a 5-pointed star. You got a vertex in the middle, and then you've got 5 polygons attached to it. It does mean it's an engon. What this is, it's like an intersection between multiple different UVs, different edge flows. And you'll have these, like you've got one here. You've got one here. You'll have one in the cheek, and you'll have one in the head somewhere at some point, like around here at some point. They just appear, it's all good. Okay, so let's move down. Let's just start connecting up the front of the face. So nose, boom, they're done. Again, just fix up some of that spacing. We want to keep it nice and equidistant. Let's fill in this area here. So we'll just fill that in. Oh, something needs to, like that. There you go. So we'll fill that area in. And again, all I did then, because I took that 2 minute, 1 minute time before just to make sure that these edges are kind of lining up with each other. It means I can just fill them in there fast. And then just quickly make some adjustments. Again, knowing I'm probably going to be adding edges in there later on anyway, but, you know, clean up as you go to as much as you can. Nice. Okay. You can see there, obviously, there needs to be quite a bit more done to the lips. In fact, we can do that. We can add another loop to the lip now. So where my philtrum round to the bottom of my lip here, I'm going to add an edge in there. So that's obviously holding control. I'm going to try and get this in the halfway point. And then move things into place because I really want to make a point of that lower lip. And then just fix up any of the hard edges that might appear from that. Yeah, look at that. Looking better already, that. And I'll do the same thing in the eye, so let's do the same thing in the eyes. So there you go. So that's jumping, and what it does, it grabs the closest surface to that new edge. That surface might not be the area that you actually want it to go to, so I'm going to add it in there, and I'm going to move stuff into where I actually want it to go. So I want it to be like there. Trace that lower eyelid kind of shape. Into that epicanthic fold. And this is one of them areas where things can get a bit tighter. You know, though I want to avoid it a lot, in most places, around the eyes and stuff, it's okay to bring edges a bit closer together and cluster them a little bit, because that's obviously where there's a load of movement. Especially if you're doing anything where you've got some high fidelity, high resolution facial animation happening, you want to make sure that that's going to move nicely with no kind of weirdness, like no smearing textures, no obvious polygons appearing. And again, we're still in early doors, so I can adjust and fix as much as I can. But what I'm really trying to look for is that edge I've just added in going to where I want it to? Is it going in the right area? Which it is. Nice. Now we've got quite a lot of this done, and I can go and do some other stuff, but I've got to make some decisions at this point, mainly around the face here, so around the cheek. This area can often stump people a lot. This area in particular can often stump people quite a lot because it's the transitional area, because you got edges coming in from the eye, edges coming in from the ear, edges coming in from the cheek, and edges going down into the chin and stuff. So there's a lot of different edge flows kind of overlapping here, and one thing I want to avoid is any kind of I've seen some people who make it's bad topology. It's not like they're justifying it. they make like U-turns in the mesh to turn it back into the cheek, and that's something you'd never do. Or like an edge will come out of this point in the eye, like here, and it'll come and it'll do a U-turn into the cheek. Like, no. So I've got to make some decisions, and sometimes I can be a bit brave. Sometimes I've got to be a bit calculated. So where I'm being brave is possibly, you know, I often connect this part of the cheek, like so. Again, middle line of the mouth here, just like I did with the eye when I made the strap going around the back of the head. I'm going to take that upper edge, so middle line there, upper edge. I'm going to take that into the lower part of the ear here first, because I'm going to just make a judgment call. I'm going to be like, okay, this one looks like it's kind of pointed in that direction, so I'm just gonna boom, put it in. Come on. Oh, I might have to. It's not wanting to go in, so I'm gonna have to force it in. There you go. So I've made a judgment call there. I've made a decision. And then I can look here. So what have I got left? I've got 2 edges here, and I've got a bunch of edges here. Okay, do I line this one up with this one, or do I line this one up with this one? I'm probably going to line this one up with this one, because if we look back at that example head we were looking at before, pay attention to, in a lot of areas, how square everything is. One thing I want to avoid is excessive use of rectangles, because rectangles, though they are quads, don't necessarily deform super well, and they don't wrap around a surface. Quads are king. Square quads are king. If we can get everything square quads, awesome. You will get more rectangular quads in some areas, like for instance here across the top of the forehead in this little N shape. They're all more rectangular. But what I'm thinking at this point here is, if I move it over here, I'm making a big rectangle, which would mean me having to add an edge in there, which means me having to fix up this later on. But if I bring it here to line up with this one, then I'm actually kind of making a square here. Again, I'm going to be adding edges in there later on, but I'm kind of like trying to preamble into stuff. Okay, so that doesn't mean that this edge is going to go to here. It just means that these 2 edges are going to connect, but this edge might go... You'll see later on. It's a whole thing. But yeah, that means that this can get a new edge there. I can complete that. There we go. Now again, if we look back at our example, oftentimes the very inside of the eye here might or will go into the nose. Just getting into like this part of the eye here will go into the top of the lip here, and some parts of like the middle of the eye here will go into the corner of the mouth here. So they connect. So that's what I'm basically doing. I'm setting up these connection points. And again, as I'm adding more in, I'm starting to see where I can straighten up the mesh a little bit, keeping that flow. Okay, so I think I'm going to force that into there for now. But then I'm going to be adding in edges in later on. But you see, I'm starting to fill those gaps in there. And this, I've done all the hard work at the very beginning by adding those edge loops in my bandit mask, eye mask, muzzle mask, lip mask, and in this case my ear mask. This is why I like using the ear mask, because it gives me a nice landmark to go for the ear. And now it's the task, which is still a hard one, the task of actually starting to fill this area in. Now, in games like Baldur's Gate or anything where you got some like customization to your character, they do wizardry where a lot of they'll have like a base face topology, and then they'll have stuff underneath it which morphs to shape. But from like Lysel to Karlach to whoever, they'll all have their own separate facial retopologies, or probably, because especially between Karlach and Lysel, because they're very, very different faces, they'll have to have their own facial topology. Most of the time, whenever I retopologize something, it's not always absolutely perfectly the same every time. Even if I'm doing 2 similar faces, because it might be the distance between like the top lip to the nose. On one of them, I'm thinking I don't really need a nose mask in there. Another one, I might be like, oh yeah, I need a nose mask in there. You know, there's all these kind of things that can change a way we approach this. And again, some of it you cannot be scared of this. You've just got to pick a destination and go for it. So while I've been talking there, I've been noticing that, and I'm saying it like I'm doing it for the first time. I always end up making this kind of shape because I go from this corner of the cheek into the ear. I'll always have this coming down. So what I'm going to do is again make that jump. I'm going to end up making an N-gon, but that's fine. I'm going to make this come all the way down to here. So what do I need to do? I need to add 2 edges in there, fill it in, drag that down. Okay. So I'm starting to fill in that cheek a little bit. That's my N-gon. That's a bit of a weird N-gon. How do I fix this? Well, how can I fix this? I could be really cheap and add an edge in there. Like that. Although that's going to offset. I've now got an uneven amount of faces down here. I could add an edge in there because that means I can just add 2 quads like that. But then I've got a really weird shape here. Like this is a horrible. It's all stretched. So what can I do? Well, let's experiment. So if I just put a dot in the middle. I can't really do that because then I end up with a triangle. So that dot in the middle is me trying to create something similar to what's going on here with this, like, you know, where all the kind of edge flows intersect. This little star shape here. It's not really going to happen here. So what can I do? Right, let's take this across there. So again, I'm just looking, trying to make judgment calls. So if I take that across there, that gives me a triangle. Okay, that's pretty easy to fix because if I add an edge in here instead, that gives me a quad. But look at the size of it. Look at the shape. So in fact, if I do this, again, trying to match what this guy does where it comes down from like the outside of the eye into the top of the lip. So I'm bringing that down from there into there. And then, yes, I've got a triangle here. So what do I do? Well, this is where I might actually like delete some faces. Be like, you know what? Maybe that's a bad idea to do. Maybe that's a bad idea to do. I'd like this. I like this. I like this flow that happens here. But it's giving me a triangle. And if I just willy-nilly add... This is where you get problems. This is where you get these weird kind of directions. So if I just add an edge in, like, say, there, and make it into a quad, what's happening is I've got an edge flow which is... It's making a turn like that. I don't want that at all. The same thing will happen down here if I do this. I get the exact same shape. If I add it in here, I get the exact same shape. I don't really want that. This one's a really nasty one as well because I've got one that's coming across the nose and then up towards the ear, and then there's one coming across and up. I mean, I'm saying this like I'm going to talk to you like you are one of my colleagues. Obviously, some of this information is going to be like, I don't know what he's seeing. I don't know how he's seeing that. This is just me kind of like working things out for myself. I do this all the time. Like, if you were to stand next to me when I'm working in my flat, I'm literally just talking to myself all the time. Because that's the way I kind of work stuff out in my head. So I've got a triangle in the cheek. Okay. I'm gonna accept it for the time being and try and work that out. And I might have to do that. I might have to fully delete the area. But for now, I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to move on. So I'm going to make a decision and then connect these up. So I'm actually going to connect these sections up a little bit. So I've connected the ear to the cranium, which gives me this area. So what have I got here? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8 edges here to fix up. Now this one's not particularly a hard one to fix up at first, but it might create problems later on. You can split 8 in half very, very easily. So I've got this halfway point here, and I've got a halfway point here. And I've got 3 up here. So what I'm thinking is, you've got an edge, 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 edge. You've got these 5 edges, and then you got these 3 edges. But if I add another 2 edges onto this face, boom, boom, I'll then have 5 edges down here. So what I could do is bridge across and then fill in, make those weld like that, and I could fill that area in. And for now, there's nothing really wrong with that. I'm filling that area in. It's all good. But why I'm saying I might foresee problems later on is that I've still not fixed this point here. I might need something to wrap around from like here, for instance, and actually wrap around up into the eyes. This actually might come back into the ear. This edge here might actually have to come to here. So sometimes I have to fill stuff in to then see that it's not actually going to work. So I'm going to take all that away. In fact, I'm going to take you away as well. Fill you back in. Take you away. I'm going to force this one into there. I'm just going to go, boom, you're going there. Now this changes the way I'm looking at the surface. That's not good because now I've made a massive... This is a really horrible shape, like this here. Horrible. And if I start to stretch it out, that looks really bad. So, cheeks can be a bit of a bugger. But sometimes you just got to step away. That's why it's always keeping stuff nice and low res is good, because then once you get your topology in there working, it's all good. Another thing I can do, I know that a lot of this might be like meandering thoughts. Another thing I sometimes do is if I'm really struggling with topology, and I did this a lot on the alien when I retopologized him, is I sometimes just put what I call a junction box. I'll make a grid of 9 squares, and I'll just fill it in so I've got 4 quads. And this is what I call a junction box because I've got 2 roads coming in and out from left to right, and I've got 2 roads coming in and out top to bottom. So I'm just going to leave it floating. I'm going to kind of line it up with stuff. So I'm going to line these two like this kind of up together. I'm going to kind of aim that in that direction, So you see what I mean? I'm just setting up something that might work later on. You see, I've already kind of seen something. See, just putting in a little bit of a junction box has sparked a ting in my head. Okay, so I'm going to start adding more edges in here, but I've got to be careful that I don't over add and then not adjust. So I've already added one edge in there for the top lip to connect the eye in there. I'm going to add another edge in here to connect this edge coming in. On this one, I'm going to mirror it. So because this is the middle of the mouth again, make sure I don't forget where the middle of the mouth is. If I'm going to put one here, I'm also going to put one here to try and keep those numbers, you know, as close to the same as possible. Also, it helps, just like with the eye, help this quicker curve seem a bit more smoother. So I'm just going to, like that. Boom. So now this edge is now, instead of wrapping around and going back, this is now coming over down into the cheek, which I'm not adverse to at all. And you can see now I'm starting to fill in that area a little bit. So I've kept my ear really low res for now, but this is also telling me that I would now start to have to think about adding edges in. So I can definitely fill in that. So all I did then was just put a point in there because I can see this edge coming down from the top. So I can just go boom, boom. So I'm just going to thin these out a little bit. I'm going to put so that to there. That can fill in, and then I can just put an edge in there, fill that in, smooth a little bit, just a little bit. I'm not going to go mad for the smoothing. I'm just going to touch it a little bit, just to even out a little bit. The smoothing is more dangerous, just like with sculpting when you're at a lower when you're working with lower density meshes, because it's going to affect it more. So I've added those 2 edges in there. I'm going to just kind of make them equidistant. And then I'm going to basically do the same at the back. So I'm going to just make sure that the front of the ear matches the back of the ear. So I've got those 2 faces. And I'm just kind of experimenting with some shapes. Ooh, one thing I am actually needing to do as well is I need to rotate more. I've caught myself out there a little bit. I'm needing to rotate more. So that looks okay, but then I'm rotating around. Look at how much that surface isn't attaching to the cheek there. And for this character, the cheeks are quite important. So I've got to look at how I can fix that. I'm still probably going to be adding more edges in there anyway, so I'm just going to have to be aware of that. I don't want to chase just fixing that just yet, because I might end up having a better way. But I've got to remind myself to rotate around my mesh more and look for those areas where the geometry really doesn't. My geometry there, my retopology, is flat, but that's quite a curvy area. That's a point right there where I should have that star should really be at that point. So I might need to add another edge going around my bandit mask. I don't know. We'll see. But just for now, I'm just gonna leave it as is. Deal with it later on. So this one is looking good. You can see what I did there before as well. I just curved this around. I started forcing that downwards. So this can now start coming down. Like that. Now hopefully some of you can kind of see where I was going. Last year I was always going on about, you know, doing shape-based puzzles is good, because this is not dissimilar to, well, it is modeling, but it's not dissimilar to modeling with primitives. It's just that whereas with primitives we've got to kind of like reconstruct the primitive on the primitive. What we've got here is we've got a surface that we're reconstructing geometry on top of. But the understanding of how things move around into shapes and how they lay together and what makes good shape, bad shape, all that kind of stuff still applies. So I'm going to add another 2 here. So I'm looking underneath there and I can see my chin is really sticking out. So I'm going to add another 2 there. And just gently smooth it. Again, I think now that evens up because I added that 1 extra edge in there. So now I'm actually think both my top and bottom are even. I might even do something cheeky with the chin later on. I'm not sure. Now, we've talked about redirection a little bit for the back of the head, where I set up those loops ahead of time and then added in stuff later on. But a really good way of redirecting loops, and sometimes you do need to turn in a face. I know before I was saying that I had that edge that was like turning in the face there. Turning on a flat surface there isn't good, but if it traces something, traces a shape, it is good. One of the easiest ways to redirect an edge flow is, you know, I think most people would look at this and think, oh yeah, that is going there, because that's the way it's facing. But if I just move this up, you could say that this goes to there. And now what's happening is that edge is now being redirected up round the face. Like that. Thus, what I call killing edges, basically means that I'm not just sending edges out into the wilderness and I'm having to fix them later on. I'm sending up around top of the head, round the chin, round the jaw, through the chin, back to the jaw. It's basically going round in a circle. So I'm going to do that for now. Again, I might change it later on, but for now it's all good. I don't think that's going to upset the topology of the face too much. Nope. That's nice. That cheek is still going to keep me up at night. I think I can fix that though. I'll probably end up fixing that when I refine the eyes a bit more though, because I've not really refined the eyes much. In fact, while we're at this point, I'm going to refine the eyes. Stop the video here because obviously it's getting on a bit, hour and a half so far. Because these will be long videos, unfortunately. It's so I don't have to do this in class. Oh, as much. So yeah, I'm going to refine the eyes area, and then call it done on this video for now. Do a quick save. I realise I'm not saving ages then. And then I'll basically complete the rest of the head in the other video. So, just like we did with the mouth then, as we were building the cheek, coming in from the top, from the eyes down into the lips and stuff, it kind of made us put a couple of edges into the lips and stuff. Now we have to look at how smooth the lips are, the lip mask is. How nice that's kind of tracing the form. And then look at the eyes. So the eyes are getting a little bit low res. They're a bit chunky. So I'm going to fix that up a little bit. And that's going to add a few edges in. But I'm not just going to kind of go mad with edges. I'm going to add them strategically and then see how they affect the surface. And I'm also going to fix up the nose as well. I'll do my little trick in the forehead here as well in this video. So first of all, I'm going to go from where we all started off, tear ducts. So I'm going to add one. So that's my center line. I'm going to add one there. I'm going to add one there. Oh, so smoothing is a bit tricky there because it's a bit low res. I know that all these are really big rectangles, but we're going to fix it later on. So I'm just going to space these out a little bit. Oh, oh, ooh, ooh. There you go. And again, all this is doing is just helping me control that quick curve of that part of the eye. And then I'm going to start to realign, readjust. I still don't want to lose that center line. That's my center line there. That's my center line there. I don't want to move my center lines. So they're both staying where they are. But for the rest of it, I'm just going to slightly rearrange. And I'm going to add two edges in here as well. So one there and one there. For the same reasons. I'm just going to make that quick, sharp curve a little bit softer. One thing I'm definitely not going to chase in this is doing the topology for a sagging epicanthic fold in the corner of the eye here. That is a nightmare for retopologists anyway. Yeah, it's horrible. But now that I've added those in there, you can see that we got some sharp lines. You know, we got some sharp little angles. So I've got to go through and get that flow. Now what's really nice to use is everyone's favorite thing, soft select. So soft select is just pressing B on the keyboard, B for Bravo. And if you hold B and then just left click, you can actually make it bigger and smaller. And this also works with the smoothing. But what I'm going to do with this is just start carefully, make sure it's not too big. Moving kind of soft clusters, almost like sculpting. Soft clusters of this around, and then I can just kind of softly, carefully smooth it. I don't want to go too mad with it. Again, I don't want to lose that center line position. And again, we've got some rectangles happening here. We're going to sort it out. So move you up a little bit. Move you up a little bit. Sorting out these clumping edges. Making them a little more equidistant. Now what I'm going to do is sort out that cheek right away. I'm going to, this edge here and this edge here, I'm going to move them both left and right. Oh, well, to the left. So there. And I'm only going to do it for this bit first. I'm not going to go down the whole chain at first. I'm just going to move that edge to the left a little bit and that edge to the left a little bit. Add an edge in there. Add an edge in there. And now that should help my cheek. There we go. That cheek's starting to become better. And again, any of that clustering, clumping, just either use a smooth carefully. Oh. Or manually move some of those edges. So yeah, the cheek's getting a bit better. Again, it's that bit there, which is causing me a problem. But for now, I'll leave it. I'll leave it for now. Right, let's fix up some of this clumping again. So you can see I am adding edges in and things are gradually getting more denser, but only slightly. We're moving in small increments. We're not going sick with it. So I'm going to carefully smooth around this area. Oh, carefully smooth around that area. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to move this edge to the right. This edge to the right again because that's my center line. That's my center line. Add an edge in there. Add an edge in there. So now I should have pretty much the same number at the top eyelid and the lower eyelid, and it's a pretty nice density. And all I've got to do is start to just adjust the topology so I'm getting rid of any of those sharp angles that it creates. Just smooth it off. So one thing that's really good to look at as well, I'll just be aware of, is when you're smoothing, the standard, it's called relax in this. When you're relaxing, it's auto set to auto lock, and that'll means that if you're on a face and you smooth, it'll lock to the face and it won't smooth the borders. If you're on a border and you press it, it only smooths the borders and not the faces. So for instance, I've got a little bit of weird clustering here. I can just hover around the edge and it's just going to lock onto the edge there, but doesn't do anything to do with the main faces. There you go. Oh, so that center line's getting shifted a little bit. So I've just got to be a bit careful about that. Okay. Oops. And again, just go in there and just re-look at the surface, because those new edges would have added more information, which then magnetizes around maybe the right areas, maybe different areas. So make sure that it's nice and smooth. That again, this spider webbing outwards is as smooth as possible. The transitions around these edges are as smooth as possible. Turn we on. Okay. So, face is really getting there. There's still places you have to work. Obviously, the inside of the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the actual lips, the ears, they're fun to do. Back of the head, neck, all that kind of stuff. But what we also need to look at is areas like the forehead. The forehead's quite an important area because it's part of the face. So, and also the nose, because it's part of the face. So I'm going to sort out this area, then call it quits on the video for now. And first of all, what I'm going to do is add a couple of edges into the forehead just to give it a bit more roundness. So one there and one there. Again, I have to go in and then just carefully smooth, especially when I'm coming around the eyes. Carefully smooth. Carefully sort out this area. Manually move stuff. That's why soft select's really nice, because I can, if smooth's not doing what I want it to do, I can just grab a few soft clusters and just move them around where I want them to go, which is then going to send better information towards my cheek area, which has caused me issues before. Okay. Oh, there we go. Right, okay. So all done there is just add two edges in, just basically double the amount of faces in my forehead. It's all good. Last thing is just to sort the edges of my nose out. So I've got a flat surface right there, and it's big rectangles. That's not good. Now if I just add an edge in there, it's going to send one all the way around to the back of the head, which you could do. It's just upping your poly count level, or upping the amount of edges you got to deal with around the back of the neck. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is first of all delete this group, these 8 faces. So where the bandit mask is there, the 8 edges above it in the middle of the forehead there. There's a reason for this. And then I'm going to add an edge in on the side of the nose, like that. That's them turning them into nice squares, which is nice. Means I've not got any nasty rectangles. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send geometry up, around, and then down into itself, because I don't want to send any more geometry into the top of the head backwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to redirect something up, round, and down into the nose itself. And I'll also do something similar with the filtrum later on. So if I've got, if you followed me exactly then, you should have 6 edges, or 3 either side. So I've got 1, 2, 3 edges here. I'm going to get the middle one. I'm going to send that up to about here. And then I'm just going to redirect it by literally like moving the vertexes or the edges facing towards each other. I'm just going to bring it to the middle, like that. I've already made that redirection now. You can see there that it goes up, around, and down. Put an extra edge in the middle, right there. And then I can just fill in the outside areas. Oh, actually, I might need to put another edge in. Oh, not at all. What have I done wrong? Dave, what have you done? Oh, there you go. Boom. Yeah, I was just not looking in the right place. It's been a long. So yeah, this corner here lines up with this corner here. I just moved it a bit too far up. I think I've made that whole gap, that whole block I deleted then, a bit too big, and my brain just couldn't see it for a sec then. Because if you look at our dude here, it's actually only really small on this guy, and it really only should be small, like that big. There we go. It smooths down right to how big it should be. And that's just another clever way of redirecting stuff. It's a little bit more of like an intermediate / advanced way of killing edges or anything like that. It's doing something like that is really good when you've got a character who's got like a really creased glabella there. If you do a sort of like gripper character, because then you can use that as almost like a crease in the middle, and you can use extra geometry around the bulges there. And then again, just kind of go through and reshape it, make sure it's nice. And so it didn't need to be as big as I first made it. I don't know what I was thinking. So that cheek's looking a little bit better, though it's still a little bit flat. My lips are looking good. So what have we got left to do? We've got the ear. Well, let's go from importance. The lips, the nose, the back of the eyes. The back of the eyes are dead easy to do. Back of the head, the neck, underneath the jaw. Depending on how much we're seeing of the shoulders, some sort of shoulder information, then the ears. Ears are a pain. I will pre-warn you, ears are a pain. Because what you don't want to do is... you want to keep the amount of edge. In fact, you know what? I'll leave it to when we do ears. I'm not even going to try and explain that one. I'll think about a better way of explaining it. It's just a bit tricky. It's not impossible, obviously. It's just a bit tricky. But yeah, that's it. So that's the beginning of retopology. So with the explanation, with me going a bit slower, with me explaining some stuff, that whole video is an hour and 40 minutes. It's a different process than what we've ever done before. Obviously, we are rebuilding geometry using a different kind of method. Technically a very easy method, because all you're doing is plotting down points and then filling them in. That's all you're really doing. The hard part comes from getting the flows flowing correctly, which takes some practice. You know, even the best people had to learn somewhere. I used to be shocking at retopology, but I'm very good at retopology these days. But I still hit brick walls. You know, I still like do something. I'm like, why have I done that? You know, even the best masters make mistakes. Not that I'm a master. I'm a master. But yeah, so if we just isolate that head off now, you've got a person right there. Now, there's still some stuff we need to look at. Like the top of the ears here, there, you got too many big rectangles, so we'll probably have to do some stuff there. When we come to do the nose, we're going to fix up here a little bit more, because this is this isn't great, and it's why I like having a nose ring around here, a nose mask. We've not got a filtrum, and even if my character's got a very, very subtle filtrum, I still like having that shape in there. Obviously lips, all that kind of jazz, and the ears and stuff. Do a save. So also, you should be doing incremental saves when you do this, obviously. But, you know, that's retopology. It's a process that takes a bit of practice, and when you first do this, really take your time. Don't get distracted. One of the biggest things is starting off with the eyes, to the bandit mask, to the muzzle, to the lip, and starting that halfway point thing. I can't stress that enough. The halfway points around your eye. Point, 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 point. So you should have 4 at the top, 4 at the bottom at first, and then you do that for the then you connect the nose together, then you can expand the bandit mask. And then you do the exact same process for the muzzle, then you do the exact same process for the lip, and you only add when you need to add. You should keep your numbers around each other. So like between 4 and 8 edges going around a basic shape is perfect. When I do my neck, I might have like 16 edges going around my neck because my neck's a bit bigger. But that is mathematically the same family as 8 and 4. No, yeah, 8 and 4. So even when you come up against problems, it might just be about where you direct stuff, not about, oh, I've got 10 edges coming in from this direction, going into 2 edges here. How am I going to fix that? Because that just means that you've not thought about setting up. Well, either you've started just adding edges into something willy-nilly, you're not really focusing on it, or you've put too many edges. You started off with too many edges around, or too few edges around one thing or another. There are very few rules, but they are very strict. Cool. So in the last few videos, what have we done? We've prepared ourselves for retopology. We've exported and dynameshed. We brought it in. We've retopologized up to this point, and then we're going to go and do the rest of the retopology when I've gone and had something to eat. So I'll see you in the next one.